Alrighty, we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Katherine Wehler. I am an activation and ascension guide here to help you access your highest self, your true soul potential. I'm so excited to talk to you guys today about abundance for empaths. And I'm just going to be 100% completely honest that I'm sort of in a space today. I actually work within mental health, which is, why they asked me on here for the mighty. And thank you all for joining. But I do want to say that today my heart is heavy with everything going on in the US, everything going on in the world. I have a lot of friends who are activists, and right now it's just a hard time. But I actually find that this conversation about abundance for empaths is really productive during a time like this. Because this is the time when we actually can start talking about real ways to make change. So I do want to say that just to start off, that I really think that this is a great conversation to be having, because right now, what's happening is that the wealth consciousness in the world is shifting. And those who have a lot of empathy, those who are sensitive souls, those who care deeply about people are the ones who are going to impact the world the most. And those are the folks who need wealth consciousness the most. For example, Madam C.J. Walker was the first woman to become a millionaire in the United States, and she was a Black woman, and she donated an unprecedented amount to the NAACP during her time. So it really is a testament to bringing abundance to all communities, bringing wealth consciousness to all communities, making sure that everyone can access this, making sure that everyone does have access to this, and we can understand how to bring it into our own lives so that we can teach others. Thank you all for your lovely comments. I really appreciate that. Like I said, today my heart is heavy in my own community. Personally, because I'm in Palm Springs, my own community is a little on high alert tonight as some outside influencers come and want to derail real activists. So thank you so much again. I really, really, really do appreciate you all being on here, and I really do hope that you share this knowledge with your friends. So I am going to be mostly taking questions about wealth consciousness and about abundance. Like I said, I'm an activation and ascension guide, so I actually work within the 11th dimension, which is something that not a lot of folks are talking about, but it basically just means that I remember a lot about the laws of the universe. I remember a lot about the way that we are here to help each other, and the way that we are here to influence real change. I feel a lot of empathy as an empath myself, and I also hold a lot of space for my clients and for my community to feel that as well. So with that said, so the reason that I phrased this as abundance for empaths, as I said, it really is the empaths who are the ones who are supposed to have the wealth consciousness as we shift our energy at the moment. So the empaths are the people who are sensitive. The empaths are the people who obviously have empathy and know how other people feel. They're the people who want to make real change in the world. They're the ones who very deeply care about other people, animals, the planets. So if that's you and you didn't know already, you are an empath. Congratulations and welcome to the club. I'm one of the most sensitive people you'll ever meet, so you're in good hands. But anyways, and you're in good company. But yeah, so these are the empaths of the world, right? So a lot of empaths are actually born or taught that they come from a poverty consciousness. And I won't go into all of the specifics on this today. I have talked about it before in my communities and in my groups if you're interested in joining those to learn more. But basically, poverty consciousness is the idea that you are born poor, you're going to stay poor, that we stay in cycles of poverty. Predominantly people of color and people who are born low income are affected by this the most, but it can affect everyone. And it's the idea that there's not enough, the idea that there are only a select few people in the world who have access to these resources, who have access to wealth, have access to riches, both financial and otherwise. And for me, I actually know and do think that abundance, not only is it most powerful in the hands of empaths, but because empaths tend to be the kinds of people who give over their power quite easily unless they're an empowered empath, which again I speak a lot of in my groups. A lot of empaths have been taken advantage of, honestly, or they're just so sensitive and they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know how to process those emotions, especially mental health wise, that they can feel deterred, and they can feel like their efforts aren't making a difference, or like they are held back from wealth because their self-esteem is so low, because self-worth equals net worth, which we're going to get to here in a second. But yeah, so basically poverty consciousness is the idea that you're born poor, you're going to stay poor, that you were born for poverty, that poverty is a cycle that you can't break out of, and that sort of thing. And of course, this affects everybody differently depending on your socioeconomic upbringing and background. Some folks are obviously more privileged than others, but for the sake of this talk, with acknowledging that, I do want to focus on it sort of holistically for all of us as empaths and what we can do for each other. So it's actually quite a superpower to be an empath when it comes to abundance in this new collective energy that we're feeling, which I'm sure everyone is experiencing. That's why I brought up the example of Madam C.J. Walker, because empaths and good people and people who want to contribute to good causes need to be wealthy now more than ever, so that we can actually affect real change in the world. Because I'm sure it's no surprise to you that money is something that can affect real change in the world and holds real power, right? And so again, a lot of empaths have this relationship with money because of this poverty consciousness over wealth consciousness, where they believe that they're not worthy of money, where they believe that money is bad, where they believe that only evil people have money. And I had all of these beliefs, trust me. I grew up, lower working middle class. Both of my parents are teachers, lovely, hardworking teachers. Oh, love my teachers. You're some of the biggest empaths I know. So, I experienced this firsthand, and they provided me with a very nice life with what they could, of course, but they themselves were working from their own poverty consciousness, right? And have since done their own work around that. So the more that we can spread this, the more we can educate people on how to move from poverty consciousness to wealth consciousness, the good people in the world, like I said, the more change we can affect. So because empaths are predominantly born with this, right? Just without going into the specifics again, just collectively, that's the energy, is that a lot of empaths are born with that poverty consciousness and then are meant to learn wealth consciousness. So because of this, it's very important, and it's actually a superpower to be an empath, which is what I like to empower people with, is that it's actually quite a superpower to be an empath. It's a superpower to care about people in this new paradigm shift that we're seeing, which I've talked about in past videos with the Mighty, because I am a professional astrologer and I talk about all of this. But it's a big deal. And being an empath, being someone who can hold space for others, knows what others feel, cares about others, is actually your biggest superpower and actually your biggest strength, because the very energy of money is love. It all comes from source, God, universe, spirit, however you think about it, right? Nature. But we all come from the same source. And so that source is a loving source. That source is a neutral source, right? Money is not evil. Money is not used for the wrong things inherently. It's people that do that. So the more that we can educate people that they don't need to be scared of money, that they don't need to buy into poverty consciousness, that they do not need to buy into the fallacy that we are all in debt and we're always going to be in debt, because if you live in the United States, that's specifically something that we're all fed. If you think about how many times a day you see something about money or think about money, you realize just how much fear it's causing for people to think about their debt and to think about how they can't afford things, or they can't buy things, or that sort of thing. And it just creates this sort of cycle of this poverty consciousness, right? That is basically used to control society and to keep the very empathic change makers down, for lack of a better word. So, like I said, it is a superpower in this new paradigm shift to be an abundant empath. And abundance is finances, it's money, but abundance is also free living, right? It's living in freedom, living in love, living in joy, feeling like, wow, I really get to breathe the air that I get to breathe today. This is a lovely day. I'm looking at my gorgeous pool. Look at that crystal clear water. I have a healthy family. Or if you don't have a healthy family, then you can feel abundant in the notion that you get to spend time with that family, right? So it's looking for all of the gratitude. And this is why gratitude has become such an important phrase in society among empath circles, because it actually is quite powerful. Because what gratitude does is it teaches us to receive, which is something that a lot of empaths are not comfortable with, because they've been taught that they have to give and give and give all their energy, give all their time, give all their money, right? And that they don't owe it, they don't get it for themselves, right? So again, and specifically, predominantly looking at a lot of people of color and a lot of lower income folks, right, are really fed this narrative that they have to give and give and give and give, and they're never going to receive anything in return. So it's important for us as empaths to speak out about this. It's important to say, yes, you are deserving. Yes, you are worthy. Yes, you don't have to give for free, right? You get to charge for your services because that's an exchange of energy. That's the way I like to phrase it, is that it's an exchange of energy, so that it's like, yes, I'm giving my time, I'm giving my resources, I'm giving my energy, I'm giving my body, and therefore I am compensated for it, right? Because I am worthy and deserving of that simply by being born, simply by being a human. I am innately abundant, right? Okay. So that's why gratitude helps so much. And it's one piece of the puzzle. Love is actually the biggest piece of the puzzle, because the more you understand that your money energy actually has to do with your money stories from the past and any narratives that you've picked up or created about money, and rather about the actual energy of money itself, which is that helpful, neutral energy. I like to think of money as like your best friend, like your most helpful tool in your toolbox, right? So because money creates freedom, money creates joy, it creates experiences, right? It gives you the opportunity to experience any kind of life that you want to experience, rather than feeling held back for any reason or fearful for any reason. That's why people say like money can't solve problems. But to be perfectly honest, if it's a problem, then that means that money can't solve it. If it is, uh, oh, oh no, I hope my computer isn't overheating. Sometimes it does that. Can you all still see me? I'm going a little slower. Oh no! Can y'all still see me? Sorry, sometimes my computer gets really, really hot. And it can move a little slowly. It's just moving a little. Okay. Okay, let me pivot so that I am in the light a little bit more. Okay. There's my kitchen. Okay, I think that's gonna be the best for right now because I don't have time to set up. Okay, so back to abundance. Can everyone see me now? I'm so sorry about that. Sometimes it gets very hot in my backyard and my computer can overheat because of that. I'm very, very sorry. Hold for technical difficulties, the mighty says. Okay, hopefully everyone can see me. I'm gonna take this chance to, yeah, everyone's saying I'm an empath. I'm an empath. Okay, great, so I'm back. Okay, so I'm so sorry about that, you guys. And we might hear my family or my dogs because we're all quarantining together. But yes, so that is why the receiving muscle is so important to build. And that is why gratitude plays such a big role in this, because it helps the empath build that receiving muscle and get more comfortable with actually making money and therefore building their wealth consciousness. So I always advise to people that they create a list where they give thanks for 7 things in their life that they have right now. And then they do a list that are 7 things that are very aligned with them, something that they genuinely want, not out of ego, but out of their higher self. Out of a really good heart-centered place that they create. I'm going to scooch this a little bit so you can see more of this background because it's prettier than my kitchen. But that they create this so that you can start developing that muscle, so that you can start developing that muscle of receiving and getting comfortable with receiving. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to touch on was money stories, which I started to talk about a little bit, and then I'll take any questions that people have about abundance, specifically abundance for empaths, how it relates to mental health, all of that. I find that honestly, money is the #1 thing for my clients that I work with one-on-one and also in group sessions that actually is contributing and causing them to have issues with their mental health and to feel anxious, to feel depressed. It's a huge contributing factor. So that's why I find it so important to talk about abundance for so many reasons, but that's another one that definitely comes up for me and is very, very, very important to touch on. So, so the other one that I wanted to say before I take any questions is money stories. So we are all born with money stories. Even the most wealthy people in the world are born born with money stories. And money stories basically just mean that you were taught something about money, or you have a relationship with a person in your life, say it's a father or an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and you are relating or equating that story, such as I am not worthy of deserving love, or I am not worthy of being treated well, right? We see these actually come up in your money energy. So another thing that I would recommend on top of the 7 and 7, and then by the way, when you do that, please say them out loud. That's how you create the energy of receiving, the energy of gratitude. And create these new scientifically proven neural pathways in your brain so that you subconsciously take this on, but also that you understand this money story thing. So what I like to have people do is that they'll write a letter to money about all of their feelings about it. I hate you. You're the worst. You make me feel icky. All the rich people have you. I want to burn the rich people, which I hear a lot. Not saying I do. I hear that one a lot. So saying all of those things, right? So with all of that said, right, you create this letter to money and you go, dear money, and you list out all of your feelings, everything that you want money to know. And then you sign it at the end, love Katherine, love Camera, right? Whoever you are. And then you read it out loud and you see what those money stories are, right? And you see perhaps who or what in your life you could actually address that letter to. So for instance, I could create a letter that's like, I don't feel safe around you, money. I feel like you're here and you're gone the next. And that could be a money story that I was holding on to, maybe like an ex-boyfriend or something, right? Or maybe I know for a lot of women specifically, it's father figures in their life are the ones who kind of create their money story, because energetically, money is masculine energy. So we tend to create it, or we tend to equate it with men most often. It's also what we've been societally conditioned to do, to think that men have all the power and men have all the money, right? The last thing that I would recommend doing is finding people from your same socioeconomic upbringing, finding people from your same background, and looking at how they have overcome those money blocks, right? Looking at people who have businesses, like the business that you want to create, or are doing the kind of art that you want to create, or anything like that. So that can help as well, because what it does is it helps expand your subconscious to what is possible, because a lot of poverty consciousness is built on not seeing that wealth consciousness within the communities that we come from. And then that becomes a money story, and then that becomes a money block. Okay, so does anyone have any questions for me? I really hope that you all can see me. Any questions? Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Sashan. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you so much for all of your lovely comments. I'm an empath. I care so much for others, and I'm sensitive too. I would love to connect with you. Awesome, Liza. Would love to connect with you too. I do a lot of wealth consciousness work within the work that I do, and I do have an abundance session that you can book one-on-one. I'm also hosting an abundance workshop coming up this Friday. So it's actually using astrology. If you're into astrology, we're going to be looking at your 2nd and your 8th house. And it's one of my favorite things to talk about in astrology. And 50% of the proceeds from that are going to be going to Black Visions Collective, who are helping keep everyone safe, who is participating as a peaceful activist. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you so much, Bonnie. So does anyone have any questions? Because questions are really, or what are some money stories that are coming up for you, right? Or what are some money blocks that you've seen in your own community or for yourself? And maybe we can talk through some of those, because we do have about 20, 30 more minutes left. And this is the best way to do it too, is by asking, well, what's coming up for you? And if no one has anything, then I can keep sharing things that have worked for me, but I'd rather share those at the end, because then it's more powerful, because then we all are helping clear those together. Okay, let's see. Money stories. Money stories. And let me just say too that, everybody has money stories. Every single person has money blocks, even the richest people in the world. Everybody does. Because we are innately born abundant. And like I said, some people are more privileged than others, but it's a story that we all live with collectively, that money is scary or money is evil or anything like that. Okay, great. Bridget says, not having enough money or feeling like you have enough. That is such a common one, Bridget. And again, I want to stress that that is really a societal thing. That is something that almost every single person I talk to brings up, because we are shown this fallacy, right? I mean, it is an actuality that we do have a 1%, especially if you live in America, who are the wealthiest people in the world. But there's also a lot of wealthy people under that. I mean, that is a top echelon of that 1%. So it's not necessarily that it's like 99% of the other people are poor. It just means that they're not at that very, very top echelon, right? So understanding that everybody has access to abundance, that, it's not a pie chart, that, there's only so much pie to go around. It's in, Sammy, could you please not? Sorry, my family's being a little bit loud. So anyways, so I just wanted to say that there's one. So I just wanted to say that yes. So a lot of people have this, because we sort of have this idea that money is like a pie, and that there's only so much to go around, but rather it's from an infinite source. It's from ourselves, really. We are that same vibration of money, that same frequency of money. So because of that, this is what happens when we quarantine. So anyways, so when we, sorry, y'all, I can't stop laughing. So it's an infinite source. It's an infinite source. Okay, let's see. Any more questions? My family is leaving. It's so funny. Okay, feel alone always, not with money. Okay, so that actually is something that obviously for mental health is very common, but it does create a money story, right? So feeling alone, or feeling like you have to do things alone, again, when you have that receiving muscle turned off, when you haven't been practicing receiving, again, a lot of empaths will deflect, right? So they'll not without money. Okay. So, yeah. So a lot of empaths will deflect a lot. Like, say you give an empath a compliment, right? And you say, "Oh, I love your earrings," rather than saying, "Oh, thank you." They'll kind of be like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are they really cute? Whatever. I love yours," right? They put the feeling right back on the other person, rather than just receiving the compliment. So I would say, again, that this is developing that receiving muscle. It's developing that muscle that says that you are worthy and deserving, that every single one of us is worthy and deserving of money, of love, of nice things in life, of all of these things, right? And that you don't have to go it alone, that you're never alone. And in truth, even if you are physically alone, you always have yourself, you always have your higher self, and you also have universal source backing you up. Again, whether you think of that as nature, God, spirit, universe, spirit guides, doesn't really matter. But just that you know that there is a force bigger than you supporting you, and that you are actually connected to that force. So that you can receive from that source, right? And be worthy and deserving of receiving from that source. That's a really good one. So you're not alone. Even if it feels like that. That's why I always do the journey back to the higher self, because then even, if you do feel alone or you feel physically alone, you understand that you aren't. You always have yourself. You are your best friend at all points. Okay, any more questions? And I should add too, that there's a lot of law of attraction and stuff like that going around too to help manifest money. And my feelings on the law of attraction are, it only works when the person is not actually trying to attract anything. And what I mean by this is that when we are the most attractive, when we are the most magnetizing, is when we have cleared and healed these blocks of money, or these blocks of anything that's holding us back from our true authenticity, from our true worth, from our true deservingness. So again, I just want to reiterate that this is something everyone can access. This is something that is actually really concrete information and a concrete way to go about it. A lot of people use the kind of system that I work with. Maria Nemeth is one of them. She's one of my favorite people who talks about money energy. She has a book called The Energy of Money, which I would highly recommend. I use it in my own work. I also offer a workbook, a 21-day workbook for $21. I wanted to make it, again, accessible for everyone, called Abundance for Empaths, and that's valued around $200. And I use a lot of her methods and a lot of her work within this workbook to help you actually tangibly write down and work on these money stories and on these blocks around money that are holding you back, not only financially and not only abundantly, but also just in every area of life. So does anyone have anything else? There's my dog. She had to join the party too. We just have to laugh through it, Every single one of my videos for the Mighty has been like this, because this is the nature of quarantining. No one has their own space. Okay. What other money stories, what other money blocks, or whatever questions do we have that I can help address? I will say too that it takes doing the work, right? So it takes actually doing the work. That's why a lot of people don't develop wealth consciousness and stay in their poverty consciousness, because they haven't been exposed to doing the work, or they just haven't chosen to do it, right? So doing all of these exercises that I've talked about, getting a book like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or The Energy of Money, are really, really, really important. Another book that I absolutely love is by Tasha Silver, and it's called It's Not Your Money, and it explains everything that I've channeled and everything that I talk about too, about money being this universal energy. Bridget says, how can we make money not at the forefront of our lives? Great. Good question, Bridget. Let me put it this way. As long as you're living in a three-dimensional reality, so as long as you're living in this physical world, money is going to be a big part of your life. And again, this is a block that a lot of empaths have, is how do they make money not a part of their lives, right? So for empaths, it's understanding that money is actually a very useful tool that you want to be a big part of your life. So it's not about not making money a part of your life. It's about creating a relationship with money, void of all of these blocks and all of these fears and all of these stories that we come up with that hold us back from loving money. And getting comfortable and in a nice, peaceful, neutral place with it, that hold us back as empaths, right? Because those are the stories we've been fed, is that, like the starving artist has to do everything for free, or that only evil people have money, or that money is only used for evil, or it's the root cause of evil. That was a money story I had, right, before I rediscovered my consciousness. Because let me tell you, my first money story is that I got $50 from my uncle for my birthday when I was 5 years old, and I spent it on a stuffed Pikachu. And I was so proud of myself. I thought that was such a great investment. And it wasn't until, people started saying, like, is that really how you want to spend your money? And, coming up with all these questions, making me doubt the abundance of money, right? Which people don't do maliciously. It's just something that's a big part of our culture, that I started developing these fears, developing these money stories about money not being my friend, about there being a scarce amount of money, about all of this, right? But 5-year-old me was like, wow, $50, let's buy a stuffed Pikachu, right? Because that's what was really cool in 1999. So yeah. So Melissa says, can you briefly explain what an empath is again? Yes, so an empath is someone who feels others' emotions. An empath is a sensitive person. An empath is a caring person. An empath is someone who feels their own emotions very deeply. It's technically defined as someone who feels others' emotions or feels others' emotional states within their own body and their own mind. However, I define it as more than that, because I do think that holistically speaking, it's kind of the best term to use, because I work with empaths, old souls, starseeds, light workers. Like, there's a bunch of different words for it, but it just means someone who's caring, someone who cares about humanity, the environment, animals, other people, right? So it's just someone who has a lot of love in their heart, someone who feels very deeply. That's an empath. Bridget says, thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Bridget. And I really hope that empowers you. Like I said, I do all of this from a space of wanting to empower people, and especially people who are taught poverty consciousness, which, like I said, are predominantly low income people and people of color. So it's very important to me that this is spread far and wide with everyone, so that we can all learn wealth consciousness together, those of us that have those big hearts and are empaths, and we can get comfortable with money and love money and find that money is our best friend, and clear and heal all of these blocks to money so that we can use it to change the world. So yeah. Empath is so much more than having love for others and things. Yes, it is absolutely, April. It is absolutely. That's the term that I'm using today to describe what I'm talking about, just so that it's all encompassing for everyone. But yes, I encourage everyone to go look up what empath means. There's so much there. I mean, there's even resources that are like how to know if you're an empath. I'm not a big fan of using terms and labels in a limiting way. Like I said, I channel from the 11th dimension, so it's not something that really is at the forefront of my mind. But yes, thank you for saying that, April, because empath does mean more than having love for others and things. That's just how I'm using it today. That's sort of like the broader sense of it. Is it's someone who has a big heart, someone who feels deeply. Okay, thank you. Do you work with children who are empaths? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do work with children, and I also do work with parents to teach their children how to access all of this. Like I said, I do more than abundance work, but it is a big portion of my work. It's something I'm personally very passionate about because I'm a life path 8. And a life path 8 basically means that money and physical, tangible abundance is a big part of my life path, and teaching that to others is a big part of my life path. So I do love working with this energy, but I work with all sorts of people. Like I said, everyone I work with has a big heart. That's, at the end of the day, the best way to describe it is that everybody I work with has a big heart and they want to change the world for the better. They want to be the change that they wish to see in the world. So yes, I do work with children. And I love children. And children bring abundance. Children, truthfully, children are some of the most abundant beings you will meet in your life. If you need a reminder that everything is well and good at the end of the day, look towards a child, because they haven't yet been conditioned by the world. Is being an empath a part of the DSM conditions? I'm not sure what you mean by DSM conditions. Could you explain that? So like I said, children bring abundance. Children are living proof of abundance. And my goal one day is actually to create programs for girls, nationwide, international programs for young girls specifically, because I do think that this impacts women the most, although I do have male clients, and I know many men who are total empaths and big-hearted and lovely folks, but I do find that women specifically are held back a lot in society by poverty consciousness and by money stories, more so than men. So it's something that I want to bring to communities and have community leaders teach to the young girls within their communities. It's an ultimate dream and goal of mine to share that, because like I said, it's something that should be accessible to everyone. It's something that every single person should have and understand. And at this point, it is being shared more widely by light workers such as myself, but it's still largely is only happening for privileged communities. So yeah. Okay, any more questions? I really appreciate all of your questions, you guys. Like I said, today's a hard day for me. Today, my heart is heavy. I live in joy all the time, but today is not necessarily like a happy day, So I'm joyful and I have love and gratitude for my life all the time. But today is a little bit heavier. So I really appreciate this community being so loving and being so supportive. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, it is the Bible of Psych. It's defined each mental health disease and writes that a description and diagnosis is. You know what, Mattia, I'm going to be totally honest. I have not read that. I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Like I said, I am a guide for humanity. I'm an activation and ascension guide. So I do work with folks who have worked with psychologists and psychiatrists, and they say that the work I do, and this is just a direct quote, I'm not claiming to make any claims whatsoever. I'm just saying what they've said. They said that my work has helped them the most. So I think it just depends on the person, and you have to sort of figure out what's going to work best for you. But I do know that this is a way of unlocking a lot of what we're not being taught, and even what certain therapists and psychologists haven't quite accessed themselves. And that's a larger conversation. But I'm not sure. You know what? And I do know folks who are psychologists and psychiatrists who specifically only work with empaths and highly sensitive people and define that as a specific group. So it could very well be, and that's something I'll be looking into after this for sure, since it is a term that I use a lot, but I mean it to be someone with a big heart. And a lot of the people in my community connect to that term because they find out that they're an empath, and then their whole life makes sense because they understand why they're feeling other people's energy, why other people's opinions matter so much to them, that sort of thing. Okay. Do you tend to find are empaths often gifted? Yes. Do you tend to find a correlation between the two? Yes, absolutely. 100%. 100%. Many empaths are very gifted. Very gifted. Many empaths, you know what it really is that empaths are old souls. They're people that remember what it's like to feel like someone else and to be in another position in society. So they have immense love and immense space to hold for the whole of humanity. It's what creates their empathy. So they're people who have been around the block, if you know what I mean. So often they tend to have gifts, and often they just tend to be really sweet, sensitive people who, like I said, want to make the world a better place. At the end of the day, that's how I define empath, as someone who wants to make the world a better place. Yes, highly sensitive. Yes. Trust me, I'm one of them. Ask my family who just came in. I am very highly sensitive. It's why I'm able to do the work that I do, because I can hold that space for people. Yes. Okay. This is a great one, Liz. She says, I'm an empath and have chronic pain due to being an emotional sponge. Yes, 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 yes. And oh my gosh, Liz Tate, thank you for joining us. I know you. So thank you for joining us. Okay. So yes. Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. The emotional sponge. Ooh, the emotional sponge. Yes. This is how empaths feel. They feel like an emotional sponge. They can often feel like their energies are not theirs. And I actually addressed this in my last video with the Mighty, which was all about human design, which is what I call a soul blueprint, or a lifetime blueprint system that helps you work out specifically where in your body and specifically what centers of your body experience this the most for you uniquely. And a lot of times empaths can have chronic pain. I used to be chronically sick before I was what I call an empowered empath, because remember, being an empath is a superpower. It is not a curse. It is a superpower that you hold. You have to figure out how to be an empowered empath, though. And this abundance work is a big, big, big part of that. So maybe I can do another entire live with the Mighty all about being an empath. But yes, so yes, it's true. You can have chronic pain from being an empath. I know a lot of folks who have had that, and also who have been able to release that, or chronic sickness, and who have been able to release that. Again, not a doctor, not making any claims. That's just what's happened and what they have told me. And yeah, they can feel like an emotional sponge. Absolutely. They can feel like an emotional sponge. The difference is between an empowered empath and a disempowered empath is that the disempowered empath only feels like an emotional sponge. The empowered empath understands how to transmute that energy and send it back in love. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I could talk about that forever. But yes, it means that they know how to transmute that energy within their body and not take on what everybody else thinks. And like I said, abundance work is a big part of this, because when you do your money work, you're doing your soul work, you're doing your mental health work, you're doing your self-love work, right? So money work is a big, big part of this, because it's going to help you tap into and unlock those stories that are causing that chronic pain, and those stories that are making you feel like an emotional sponge. It's all intrinsically connected. So the more you heal that, the more you heal your money, you know, whatever else is in your life, it all is going to come together. It's why you don't necessarily hear people who are wealthy and also super sick, right? Or also, unhappy in love. And if they are, then the balance is off. But a lot of times you hear about, and I'm talking about empaths, I'm talking about, the quote unquote good wealthy people, right? So, not the ones that we don't like as much, but the ones that we do love and that we look up to, they are living abundantly, right? They're living within a free energy, a loving energy, a joyful energy. So yes. Wow. Yes. An old soul. 100% an old soul. I am the oldest soul in the book. The oldest soul. Maybe not the oldest, but I'm one of the oldest. I remember so much. Lynn says, would love to speak to you later. Would love to speak to you too, Lynn. I'm so honored that so many people are connecting with this, because it's, like I said, very near and dear to my heart. Lala says, I'm pretty sure I'm an empath, but can you switch from empath to not being empathic? So a lot of empaths can feel like this shadow side. And again, this connects back to the money work. This connects back to the soul work. A lot of empaths can feel a shadow side of resentment because they've been taken advantage of. And so that's often the time when you're not going to feel as empathic. You're not going to feel as loving. because you feel like no one is appreciating you. You feel like no one is seeing you. You feel like no one is loving you, paying you, compensating you, right? So acknowledging your existence. So that's why it's so important for empaths to do this work and to develop this wealth consciousness, because then you can be what I term as an empowered empath, which is someone who uses their empathic abilities that they were naturally born with, these hypersensitive abilities, to hold space for others and to take care of others, right? They use them at their highest potential and their highest degree. So yes, that's quite often. Okay. By intense, I mean feeling everything so deeply and intensely, whether it be happiness, sadness. Yep. Yep. That's a sign that you're an empath. Everything feels so intense. So intense. It's amplified. What you're doing is you're amplifying collective energy. So empaths hold and amplify collective energy. Again, it's part of them being an old soul, is that old souls are here to help younger souls. And the old souls feel everything. And that's why it's so important for the old souls to become empowered, and for the old souls to understand that this is a superpower and this is how they actually make their way in the world and why they came here. Because then that's when we're actually able to have a lot of empowerment, have a lot of strength, right? As we're seeing right now with activists, and then take that strength, take that empowerment, and make really positive change in the world. It's a positive word. It's a positive. Okay, so the mental health is, Mental Health on the Mighty is saying connect further with Katherine. Thanks, Mental Health on the Mighty. I do have a website as well, and that is www.katherinewehler.com. And like I said, I have abundance with astrology, using your second and your eighth house if you're into astrology, coming up this Friday, and 50% of the proceeds from that are going to go to a community organization helping people right now. So yay, because abundance is all about generosity of spirit and feeling like there's more than enough. There's plenty. I'm always receiving it. I'm always worthy and deserving of receiving it. And I'm worthy and deserving of giving it back, right? So it's that flow of energy. It's that flow of money rather than holding on to it so tightly and living out of poverty consciousness, living out of scarcity. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Mighty. They posted all my stuff. Great. And I also do have a group as well on Facebook. I call it Soul Rediscovery. And I have a podcast called Soul Rediscovery that's connected to that group. So if you want to connect together on Facebook, that's the best way to do it. Because that's where I post the most. That's where I do live videos for my group on these kinds of topics. And if you sign up for my mailing list, then you get special offers. So if you want to connect with me further, that's definitely the best way to do it, is to get in contact with me. And they posted that one too. Yay, the Mighty's the best. So they posted that one too. So if anyone is interested in working with me further, or just learning about this further, I would absolutely love that. I always feel, the last time I did a live with the Mighty, I had one woman book with me directly after to learn about human design. And we've now been working together a few weeks, and she was telling me just the other day how much it's changed her life. So that makes me really happy, because I feel like it always comes at the right time when you find this work, and you always connect with the right person to help you through it. So it's very much in alignment. So if you're digging this, if you're digging me, let's do it. I'm here for you. I'm here to support you and help, guide you along the way, because I had to figure out all this stuff on my own. And let me tell you, that was not fun or easy. So I try to make it fun and easy for my clients and for my community. Okay, are there any last bits of conversation, any last questions that anyone has? If you didn't see the beginning of this, please go back and watch it, because I did give some actual actionable tips about how to do this. Charisse says, I was still struggling in my life. How do I get better? Charisse, I have some really, really wonderful advice at the beginning of this. So if you didn't catch that, I would highly recommend you look at it. Like I said, money, mental health, self-love, it is all intrinsically connected. As I said, I'm a channel of the 11th dimension. I see this energy connection very clearly. So the more you can do for your mental health, the more you can do for your self-love and self-rediscovery, and the more you can do for your money energy, the more you're going to heal everything holistically and feel better all the way around. Because like I said, money is a tool. Money is a helpful tool. It's a loving tool. It's one that's here to help you very, very much. If you're an empath, you're here to literally attract money once you understand how to use that energy. So I would say to go back and watch those if you're struggling, and then of course to connect with anyone else in your community, a counselor, a psychologist, a therapist, group support, friends and family who can help you as well. Always, always, always. Community is so important, especially for empaths. Surround yourself with the right people. Yeah. Okay. Any more? Thanks so much for being on here, you guys. This truly made me feel better. It really did. Okay. Okay, so going. Anybody else? I think everybody, your questions were wonderful. I'm just going to see if I missed anything. Thank you so much. Again, Liz, Lynn, Lala, Melissa, everyone who commented, everyone who asked questions. Thank you, because that's how we really create change, is by asking these questions and starting these conversations and beginning this work, right? Actually, what I call investing in yourself, right? Whether that's time, money, energy. So I just want to encourage you that if you're interested in doing this work, please invest in yourself. If that's buying one of those books I mentioned and reading that, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is actually free online. So I'd highly recommend that one. I recommend it to all of my clients anyways, because it would take way too much time for me to go over all of that in a session. And the book's already been written. So there you go. But what I like to do is, like I said, I've worked with many mentors. I've worked with many people to help my own money energy in the past. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly adding new resources. So I do have that workbook, Abundance for Empaths, to help streamline the process and compile all of these resources in a very fast-track transformation of 21 days for $21. I have that class coming up, which is on my website. It's called Blueprint Sessions, and you'll see Abundance with Astrology. And then I also have the Abundance session, which you can book on my website if you want to work together one-on-one. And you can also send in any questions that you have through my website. And I hope to see you in the community that I have as well, the Soul Rediscovery community. Okay, thanks, Melissa. I talk about a lot. Wanted to say too that I talk a lot about abundance on my podcast as well. So I actually just had a client come on who we're working on her finances right now, and she's well on the track of abundance. So that might be worth listening to also. And I love providing that resource. I love having my podcast. Thanks, Melissa. Okay, so thank you all so much again for joining me today. I really, really, really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much. I can feel the love through the screen. I can feel all of you through the screen. That's part of being an empath, right? And part of living an abundant life is being able to accept and receive that love. So again, I just want to say thank you. I'm so sorry for these technical difficulties, but like I said, all we can do is laugh through it, right? So that's what we're going to do. To everyone who is being active in their communities right now, spreading love, spreading joy, showing up in solidarity for one another, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please continue. Please know I'm with you, and I love you, and I see you, and I support you. And I do this work to support you. It is why we do this work, so that we can change the world. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have beautiful, wonderful days. Bye.